Okay, everyone. This video is on setting up your IK and adding your controls to your character, and also creating a shelf where you can store buttons that will activate joints that we're not going to put controls on. In the interest of time, I'm going to move through this fairly quickly, so it won't be as long a conversation as it was in class, but all the information will be here. You might have to watch it a couple of times to kind of get it, and I'll talk through as I'm working on it. But I want to keep the length of this down if I possibly can. So this is our practice character, and I've just turned off the polygon so we can just see the joints. We're going to go into our rigging menu set, and we want to hook up IK in his leg so that we can keep his foot on the ground and move the rest of him around, keep his feet in place until we want to move them. It's very, very important, especially on a bipedal character, to have that level of control over the feet so that you can put them somewhere and keep them there until it's time to move them again. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to go in here to skeleton and create IK handle. And we want to check our options here to make sure that we're on the rotate plane solver. That's the one we want right there. And we can go ahead and close that tool settings. And we've got our IK handle tool, and we're going to start out here at the hip, click on the hip, and then we're going to skip the knee and hit the ankle. And this is our IK handle now. So this now the control of the joints in the leg is now handled entirely by IK. So you won't be able to rotate the handles anymore, or the joints rather. IK is the only way that that leg gets moved at this point. So that's the first one. We're going to create two more. We're going to hit Y to get our tool back. We're going to click on the ankle joint, skip the foot, and go right to the toe. And then Y one more time, get the toe, and hit the toe end. And those three IK handles are what are going to allow us to move that foot around. And more importantly, to keep that is what's going to keep it in place when the character is just standing around. Now we want to make it as easy as possible to animate this leg, so we're going to add a controller to this setup that will allow whoever's animating this character to just click on that controller. It will automatically select all the IK handles, and they can animate just the control, and the IK handles will follow. So to do that, I'm going to turn our model back on just so that we can see the edges of the model. And I'm going to create a NURBS circle. We can use anything for a controller. This is just the simplest shape to use. I'm going to move this into place. I'm using the directional handles to move it into place because that's important. You don't want to move it up and down. You want to keep it on the ground plane since that's where our character is. And I'm just going to roughly shape it so that it's around the size and shape of the character's foot. That's why I turned the geometry back on. And that'll do. It'll work just fine. And with that selected, you can see I've got translate and scale values here. I don't want those. I want to be able to zero this out and reset it if I can. So I'm going to go to Modify and Freeze Transformations. And as soon as I click on that, it's going to zero everything out, resets the scale to 1, and we're good to go. We also want to name these as we go. We don't want a bunch of things saying NURB circle, so we'll call this foot control left. This is going to control his left foot. And now we're just going to parent everything together so that when we grab this handle, this controller here, it'll move everything. So I'm going to grab the toe control, or the toe end control, excuse me, and the toe control and hit P to parent. So now this is a parent of the toe. And same thing here, grab the toe control, shift select the ankle control, hit P, and now if I grab this one, I can move that, and all three of the IK handles move at the same time. So the very last thing we'll do is we'll grab that ankle IK handle, shift select the foot control that we just created, hit P again, and now when I grab the foot control, it moves around. Let me turn off the geometry so you can see that a little more clearly. I grab the foot control, I can move around the foot. Now the pivot is in a bad place for our foot's positioning. The rotational point is right here in the middle of the foot, which really isn't all that good. So what we want to do is move that. Hold down the D key to get our move pivot point tool, and then we're going to hold down the V key, which is going to turn on our snap. Click in the center of the manipulator and then move that up to the ankle, and that's where we want the rotation to happen now. And now when we grab this and we rotate it, the ankle will rotate from that point. So that gets us a nice handle to get our foot going. We also want to be able to point the knee. So for that, we're going to use a pole vector constraint, which is a way that we can use this little arrow here in order to point the knee. We're going to first create a locator, which is a handle that Maya provides for us. That's just a handy little, it's basically a vertex with handles on it. And once again, with the move tool selected, I'm going to hold down V for snap, and I'm going to snap it right to the knee. And then I'm going to take it, I'm going to move it out so it's around the toe. We want to get it far enough from the knee so that the knee's never in danger of touching it, because if it gets past the locator, the knee will flip around. Once again, we're going to go modify and freeze transformations. And we want to rename the locator to knee control left. There we go. And straight parenting, the selection order is child and parent. With constraints, we select the parent first, then the child. So we're going to select our locator, shift select the ankle handle, which is the one that controls this pole vector right here. And then we're going to go constrain and pole vector. And that connects up. You can see the line there that connects everything. And if we select our knee control now and we move it side to side, you can see that we can rotate the knee independently of the foot, which is a very desirable feature to have. We want to throw a couple more controls on here. One is around the attached to the pelvis so that we can move the character around fairly easily. The feet will stay in place because they have IK on them, but we can move the hips of the character and then the rest of the character will follow along. So once again, we're going to create a NURB circle, and I'm going to turn on my geometry again so I can see what's going on. V for move snap, and I'm going to snap this up here to the pelvis joint. It's in the right place, and then scale it so that it's past the geometry so that we can just click on it outside of the character. That's almost there. Go a little bigger. That's pretty good. Once again, modify freeze transformations, and we're going to call this pelvis control. And we want to do a straight parent on this, so we're going to select our pelvis joint. Whoops, let me turn off the geometry again. Pelvis joint first, and then we're going to shift select our control and hit P for parent. And now when we grab this and we move it, we can move the entire character. The foot stays in place, and we can come over here and reset this to 0, and the character will go back to his main pose. Now naturally you do the other leg as well. I only did one in the interest of time. One more control we want to hit, and that is a main move control that will take all of the controls and move them all at once so you can position your character at the beginning of the shot. One more NURB circle, and this one we're just going to scale up so that it encompasses literally everything. Modify freeze transformations. You're probably seeing a pattern here. Main control, rename it. And then we're going to take our pelvis control, our knee control, our foot control, and finally our main move control. And once you get the other leg rigged up, you would include those controls as well. Hit P, and now when we grab this control and we move it around, it moves the entire character around. So we can position him if he starts out the scene over here, we position him there, and we can rotate him so he walks in this way, and then we can just animate the character. We don't have to grab all of them individually and move them back. All right, so that's the basic IK rig for the lower body. For the upper body, we could add controls to everything. It starts to get a little bit messy and it's a little trickier to rig. So instead of that, what we're going to do is create a custom shelf. We're going to create a shelf right in our Maya interface where we can store buttons that will select joints for us that we can rotate. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come up here to the menu for the shelves. Click on the button here. Looks like a little gear. Then we're going to select New Shelf, and it's going to ask us what we want to call it, and we'll call it whatever, upper body will be fine, and OK. And that gives us a brand new shelf. My tabs aren't showing for some reason, but you'd normally have tabs here, and it would have the name on it that we just created. So to create a button, we're going to use our script editor, and that's the button down here in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm going to click on that. With the script editor open, we're going to go to Edit and Clear History, and that clears out everything that Maya has done to this point. And to set up a button, let's say we want to set up one for the elbow. We're going to click on the elbow joint, and you can see that Maya issues a command, select elbow left, which is great. We're going to highlight that command, and then we're going to come to this button right here, which is called Save Script to Shelf. We click on this and enter name a new shelf item. So that would be elbow left. The names on these buttons need to be very short because there's not very much space in the shelf itself for them. So if you make them really long, you'll only get the first 4 or 5 letters. So we hit OK. It'll ask what type of script you want to save. We're going to save as Mel. And then there's our elbow left button right there. So if we want to just select the elbow to rotate it, we click on elbow left and it selects it, and then we can rotate that elbow. So you can do this with individual joints. You can also do it with a sequence of joints. Let's say we wanted to do a sequence for the spine. We've got 3 spine joints. We've got spine 1, spine 2, and spine 3. And we want to select those. You generally, when you're doing multiple joints, you want to start at the child joint, work your way down, because that puts the locator in the best possible place. So I'm going to go ahead and clear my history again, edit, clear history. And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to select spine 3, shift select spine 2 and spine 1. And I can select all 3 of these command lines, hit this button again, and we'll call this spine, and OK, and then save script as a Mel, and there's our spine button. And when we click on spine, it selects all 3 joints, and then when we rotate it, it rotates all of them at the same time. So it gives us an advantage when we're posing this character. Now you probably would want to have individual buttons for each of them as well so that you could actually pose the character. But if you're just going to have him, kind of lean over and pick something up, this is a handy button to have so that you don't have to do individual joints. Now, the only drawback to a shelf is that it's saved with the install of Maya. It's not saved with your scene. So if you're working in the lab and you create buttons and you want to take them home with you, or vice versa, you're working at home and you want to bring the buttons to the lab, you have to know where to look for them. And it's pretty straightforward. On a Mac machine, we go to the Go menu, and then you hold down Alt, and you get Library. So Library is the only thing that's different. We have to start in the library on a Mac. On a PC, you would just start in the Preferences window. So here we are, we're Library, and you would look for Preferences, and then Autodesk and Maya, and the version of Maya that you have installed. You see I've got several. 2017, and then Prefs, and then Shelves right there. And we called this shelf upper body, and there it is right there. So we would take this, copy this onto a flash drive, or upload it to the cloud, or email it to yourself, whatever, however you want to get it to wherever else you're going to work. And then you would take it when you got to where you were going to work and put it back in the same place. So you're going to put it, when you get to your other computer, you're going to go to Preferences and Autodesk and Maya and your version and Prefs and Shelves, and then you're just going to copy it into the Shelves directory. And when you restart Maya, your shelf will be there. So that was very quick, I know. And I only did a couple examples of the joints. You're going to want to do buttons for really everything that doesn't actually have a control on it. So basically the upper body. So lower body, we're handled. We're good to go. We can move the pelvis up and down. We can point the knee. We can move the foot. But the spine, the neck, the head, the arms and fingers, you're probably going to want to build out shelf buttons for all of those so that you can just click on them and animate them more easily. Hope that helps. And next week we'll start talking about animation. So get your rigs done, and I'll see you on Monday night.